Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the video. And so I guess I'm doing these things kind of daily now. I don't know why I'm doing it daily. I just am. Because I feel like it. I don't really got a reason why. But today, I should probably explain why these three people are here. So today I'm going to be talking about a show I watched called Lost. I watched this show in 2019. So it was like, what, 5 years ago now? So 5 years ago, I watched this show called Lost. And really, to understand this show, you have to watch it like 3 times. So I'm on my second rewatch right now. And I understand the show now. I get like everything that's going on. Because the show is about a group of plane survivors who crash on a mysterious island that at first they think it's just some random island that's never been discovered by humanity. And then the island starts to do weird things, and then they start to find out that there are other people on the island. And I'm not going to spoil it in case you guys want to watch it. But they find out the island isn't really what the island appears to be. And the show for some people it's a show that for some people would really enjoy it. I really enjoyed it. For other people, there's a lot of aspects of it that are hard to understand, which is especially why you have to watch it like 2 or 3 times. You really have to give it a few chances, because the first time you're going to be so confused, but the second time you're going to understand it like really well, and the third time you'll fully understand just about everything there is to understand about the show, because the show does also leave some things up to interpretation as well. So, I'm gonna go over my 3 favorite characters of the show. I w- I don't even know if I know that 2 of them here are my favorite characters, but I feel like one of them could be swapped out. So we'll go from left to right. So my favorite character of the entire show is Sawyer, or AKA James Ford. So Sawyer is kind of like the smartass of the group. He he has my kind of humor. The character has my kind of humor, and I mean he makes quips about everything. And his character is kind of like a loner type. He he has an interesting backstory where I don't know if this is really a spoiler necessarily. I mean it could be. So spoiler warning, I guess. But basically, when Sawyer was a kid, his mom was cheating on his dad, and I don't think it was that actually. Sorry, I was thinking about it. I don't think she was cheating, but she met a dude who went by Tom Sawyer, and Tom Sawyer convinced Sawyer's mom's husband, Sawyer's dad, to go into this deal and spend all of his money, which I think was around 40,000, into a deal that would double or triple their money. So Tom Sawyer cons them. Sawyer's dad gives him the money, and then Tom Sawyer, aka Anthony Cooper, runs off with the money, causing Sawyer's dad to go bankrupt. So because of that, Sawyer's dad beats and kills Sawyer's mom, and then while Sawyer is like 8 hiding under the bed, he decides that he wants to be emo and delete himself from the planet, all while Sawyer is under the bed. So now Sawyer, I don't know at what point in the show he decides to take on the name Sawyer instead of James Ford, but so his real name is James Ford. So at some point he goes from James Ford to Sawyer. And in a flashback, because this is a spoiler, in a flashback that is seen, because there's multiple flashbacks throughout the show so you can understand the characters better. So in a flashback, Sawyer does the exact same thing that Anthony Cooper, aka Tom Sawyer, did to his parents. And when he sees a little kid no older than 6 walk in the room, he says the deal isn't happening, it's over, and walks out because he doesn't want to recreate what happened to him onto another child. So there's a lot of detail and aspect into Sawyer's character, which makes him, at first, you're going to hate him, then you're going to love him, then you're going to hate him. He's a love-hate character. I've always loved him. That's just me, though. I've always liked his character a lot. So there's a lot more to go on about him, but that was like 5 minutes. So I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the next favorite character, John Locke. So John Locke, Mr. Bald, Mr. Clean over here with his machete and stuff. So I'm trying to figure out, how do I talk about John Locke without spoilers? I guess a spoiler for John Locke too. So John Locke, his story is off the island before he crashes on the island. He is a man who was he was alone in life. He didn't really have anything or anyone that was worth mentioning. He was pretty much a nobody. He worked at toy stores and box factories. He was just a normal dude. And that's not what he felt his destiny was. John Locke was a man he was a man who was trusting and easily manipulated. So John, he was adopted and put through the foster care system all throughout his life. And one day he's working his job at some toy store, and a random woman looks at him and keeps looking at him, and he's trying to figure out who this woman is. So he goes out in the parking lot and sees this woman running away. He catches up to the woman and he says, "Who are you? Why were you following me?" And the woman turns out to be his birth mom. So his birth mom says that so John Locke asks his birth mom what about, like, stuff about his birth dad, and his mom says, you do not have a dad. Well, John obviously doesn't believe this because that's not true. I mean, unless John Locke's Jesus Christ, it's not true. So John continues and he finds his mother again. Well, I guess he finds his mother. So he finds his mother because it didn't already happen. And they eat lunch and he says, "Who is my father?" And finally, his mom gives him the name Anthony Cooper. What? Wasn't Anthony Cooper the one who conned Sawyer's parents? Yeah. Yes. An interesting thing about the show is almost all of the characters are connected some way. So, John goes to meet his birth father, Anthony Cooper. And Anthony Cooper, because John Locke is easily manipulated because he wants to be loved and be appreciated, Anthony Cooper acts like his quote-unquote father again, or I guess for the first time, because he never was the father. He was a deadbeat. So they start going on hunting trips, which is an important information about John Locke's character. Is he is a very skilled hunter and overall outdoorsman. So he starts doing that with his son, and then he tells John the next time he comes back to come at 11 o'clock. So John comes at the correct time, but it's revealed that Anthony Cooper is having dialysis for his kidney problems, which was all part of Anthony Cooper's con plan to get Locke to give him his kidney. So you can guess the story where Locke gives him his kidney willingly after being convinced, making him think it was his own idea, and then Anthony Cooper never wants to see or talk to him again. So now there's more to this story, but now if you flash forward to onto the island, John Locke, who was paralyzed from the waist down, once again due to Anthony Cooper. So he was paralyzed from the waist down for 4 years. He crashes on the island and he can magically walk again. And so at this point, John Locke becomes a man of faith. And there's another character, Jack Shephard, in the show, who's a doctor and is a man of science. There's a whole episode about that. It's really good. That's mainly what season 2 is. So John Locke becomes a man of faith and instantly believes in the island's abilities and powers because he was miraculously healed after a spinal cord injury, which he could never recover from in any sort of situation. So John Locke then becomes an advocate for the island, and overall he has the most faith in the island, and he's weird. He's a little weird to the rest of the oceanic survivors because John Locke has faith in the island and understands what the island is to a certain degree that the other characters do not. So when John Locke does something and he can't explain why, usually it's because he's always been ashamed that he was handicapped. And so whenever he would do something, it was typically involved around him being handicapped, and he couldn't explain that was why he believed in the island. So he was a man of faith who did everything that the island directed him to do without question. There were a couple times where his faith kind of was in the air, which would move on to the third favorite character, Mr. Echo, which we'll get there in a second. So John Locke, he had wavering faith, but like I said before, he was easily manipulated, which is part of the reason that his character, what happens to his character happens. I'm not going to go into that much detail about that, because I don't want to spoil all of it. But John Locke is an overall, he's an interesting character and a man of faith and that's what I really like about him, is he may be easily manipulated, but he does have his principles, and he rarely would back down from his faith in the island, and would continuously, no matter what it was, he would do what the island told him to do. Now, the third favorite character, Mr. Echo. Honestly, this character could be replaced with a handful of characters, but I do genuinely like Mr. Echo, because, like John Locke, he is a man of faith. Not in the island, but in God. So, Mr. Echo, his backstory is, he is from Nigeria, and he had an older brother named Emmy. And Emmy was involved a lot within the church, specifically, I believe, the Catholic Church, because that's what the show, with how Emmy was dressed in flashbacks, it was Catholicism. So he was involved within the Catholicism part of Christianity. And Mr. Echo, that's what he goes by in the name, because he used to be a former warlord. And Emmy was his older brother who was always righteous and good. And so Emmy goes on a plane to go minister to people, and he dies. I'm sure you know where that plane ends up. And so at that point, Mr. Echo wants to turn his life around, and he starts trying to change his ways and no longer be involved within the warlord lifestyle. And so he gets on the oceanic plane. He's going to go and try and find himself and to reconnect with God. And he crashes on the island. And that is where he finds more faith than ever within God. Because there's a lot of things in the show where the island, it's not necessarily the island, but I don't want to reveal too much. So for this case, we'll say the island shows him things about, and shows him his brother Emmy alive, and that really helps him to reconnect with his faith within God. And at one point, he even starts building a church to make up for his wrongdoings. And Mr. Echo's character was a really good character, really strong character, because when John Locke loses faith in season 2, Mr. Echo is there to replace that faith and to continue moving on with what the island wants them to do, even though John Locke no longer believes for a short period of time. And this is kind of a longer video, just going on about what I like about these characters. I know I went on about Sawyer for a really long time, but I just really like his character. And so, yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed the show. I think it's a really good show, and I really think you guys should watch the show. It's on Hulu. I don't think it's on Disney Plus. I don't think it is. But I know it's on Hulu for sure. So if you want to watch it and you have Hulu, you could watch Lost. There's 6 seasons, and there's so many great characters and so many great stories. But I would highly recommend watching Lost. It is a great show, and it may take you a couple times to understand it, but it is worth watching it and rewatching it. So thank you guys for watching this video. Peace out.